So this is the last episode of Funding Awesome for 2023. Last week, we took a look at some of our favorite moments over the year, both in AI on the software side, on the hardware side, as well as some of our favorite stock picks. And this time I figured what we would do is we would put together an episode that focuses on the future, talk about our predictions for 2024, both in terms of stocks as well as advanced technologies, and what we think will be the biggest highlights of the year to come.
And also so we can look back at this in a year and laugh at how wrong we were.
Your time is valuable, so let's get right into it. The first place I want to start is actually with interest rates. So the Federal Reserve recently announced that they predict that interest rates will be cut in 2024 and 2025. So one of my big predictions for next year is growth stocks will start a new multi-year rally. It might be slower than it was in 2020, but I think as interest rates decline and AI adds productivity and scale, we're going to see a lot more IPOs, mergers, acquisitions. We're going to see a lot more growth stocks and small cap companies rally. What else do you think will happen?
But I think one thing we should think about, how much of this has already been baked in? Were some of the rallies this year already about the fact that people were pretty confident the Federal Reserve was going to start cutting next year? That's the only thing. It might be a timing thing, but really there's a lot of tailwinds here, put it that way. I think there's several tailwinds, and I think growth is well positioned.
I think it's worth talking about the few different reasons that interest rates going down will be so impactful for smaller growth stocks. Interest rates going down means cheaper borrowing costs for smaller companies, which means it costs less to research and develop new products and services. Hire new people will also be willing to pay a higher premium, a higher price to earnings ratio on those same companies. So it's like a double whammy there. And then because of that, we expect big institutional investors to rotate back into growth stocks from more value plays, from bonds and things like that. So all of those things stack together to make it a good environment for growth companies. So I think for us, what that means is we also start covering growth stocks in those same areas. What do you think? Are you excited to cover more growth stocks? Do you think we should stick to the big seven?
Yeah, exactly. I think growth stocks are like back on the market. And also, when was the last time we covered an IPO? Maybe we did one this year with ARM. Other than that, there really haven't been many IPOs. The IPO market is completely dried up. I think one other key point is there's a lot of money right now that's not even in any equities. It's either sitting on the sidelines in cash or it was invested in things like government bonds when the interest rates were so high. People were able to get a 5-6% guaranteed return in some fixed income product. Why would they take that risk versus equities? People are not going to be able to get those returns with just putting cash to work and getting interest on it. They're going to look for other places. Equities are going to be coming more in favor, and that will mean more money will come into the stock market. And if people are looking to outperform the market, growth stocks might well be a really good place for it to go. And I think that's where it will be. I think growth stocks will have a much better year next year.
I actually have a pretty contrarian opinion to that. I think that even though growth stocks will see a lot of lift, like you're saying, I think the Magnificent Seven are still going to perform really well. I think what's going to be different about this versus, say, 2020 is that people won't rotate out of the big seven. I think all of tech will see a big rally, including the Magnificent Seven. So not just ARK Invest's favorite stocks.
There's two reasons the money could go to the Magnificent Seven. If you remember, when we first hit this kind of crunch in terms of interest rates started to increase, people then were going to those big companies, the mega cap tech companies, for safety. They had huge balance sheets, loads of free cash flow. They were going there because they're well-established companies that are not going anywhere. They're going to be around for many years. They weren't necessarily going for real growth in those companies. It was more of a safe haven. But in this year, the growth story for those mega cap tech is actually there's growth. There's AI has been an accelerator that has really led to changes in those areas. So if that logic continues, then, those same companies are going to definitely benefit from this tailwind. And I think that trend will persist. I think the only thing that could really stop this thesis or the fly in the ointment that might be there is how much damage has already been done to the economy with interest rates being as high as they are. But interest rates, it takes time. There is a lag effect for these changes to really go through the entire market. So as interest rates are reduced, that will also take time for that effect to happen as well. So there still is a chance that we might have a few difficult quarters in terms of growth in the US in particular in 2024. In the first half of the year, I think we might see some turmoil there. There might already be some damage that has been done that just hasn't surfaced yet. because there's different types of growth stocks. There's some that are really heavily leveraged, that are maybe IPO'd too early when they really shouldn't have. Their path to profitability is not obvious. That's one category of growth stocks. You have others that are already profitable, are generating free cash flow. Let's take Palantir, for example. I think they turned profitable just this year. They've got, I think, 3 billion of cash on the side already. So I would put them in a different category to other companies that are still in debt and are still trying to break out of that cycle. So not every growth company, but the high quality ones. And I think the ones that are aligned to AI. But I think 2024 will be a truth moment really for AI. Yes, so much hype was there. I think the hype was real. These were companies with products that they were charging for. But 2024, we're going to have to see a meaningful increase in revenue based on AI, and people to be able to say AI has actually made a meaningful change in our business model. We talked about growth stocks, but even Microsoft, I want to see how much Copilot has brought in and what the pipeline looks like, and for that to be real. And I think then everyone will feel more comfortable that, yeah, this AI trend is real. Companies are going to accelerate. And I just worry that there might be somewhere where they're really overhyped. They may have some AI under the hood, but it's not really fundamentally bringing them in more revenue. And I think that's a risk. And those are the companies where I worry about in future.
I think I'm looking for the same kind of things, actually. One of the big things that happened last year, and even to some extent the year before, was a lot of companies began cutting their headcount by thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. They returned to an era of efficiency. They really focused on revenue per employee and seeing how far companies are able to stretch that by leveraging AI. I think the best companies will be the tech companies that actually embrace AI, and the worst ones will be the ones that say they do, but actually don't. They're just using AI as a buzzword. And that's true whether they're a mega cap or a much, much smaller company than that. So that's on the investing side, right? What do you think about generative AI as a technology that we use? Do you think most people will end up touching generative AI at least once in the next year? Or do you think most people still haven't tried ChatGPT and won't next year? What are your thoughts on AI as a capability?
Oh, they won't be able to avoid it. Even if you tried to, I don't think you can. Even as you're writing like emails, any social media application, anywhere where you're writing content, I expect generative AI to be embedded in there over the next year, even more so than it is right now. And I think loads of software platforms are going to have their own copilots. All of them are going to announce some kind of copilot, which will be trained on the information and the domain specific data about you using that platform. And so it'll be specific and specialized to what you're trying to do. So yeah, even if you wanted to avoid generative AI next year, I don't think you're going to be able to. And I think it will get to the point where it's just there. You almost forget it's even there. It will just be there making things easier for you you'll just be able to write and create content quicker. I think it'll almost fade into the background and it will just become ubiquitous everywhere.
One thing that I really didn't think about was the fact that they might touch generative AI and not even realize it. So two examples of that I think that we might see next year are generative AI built into games where you don't realize that the dialogue was written by a generative AI or is being generated in real time based on your unique interaction inside a game. Or in movies, we might see generative AI go as far as generating some visual assets or even some of the lines of the script, and you would never know because it's just produced like the rest of the movie.
One of the ideas that I think might not take off was the whole thing that we saw at Dev Day, where OpenAI spoke about this kind of GPT store where you can have all these different types of personalized, specialized AI put up. The more I think about this GPT store and this concept of having a different GPT for everything you want to do, I think is not where people want to go to. I think people want one single interface, and they don't care how it's fulfilled. It might go to an actual specialized GPT just for that. But really, the interface they want is simple. They want elegant. They want to go to one place, ask a question or ask some data, and they want it returned back. Think about your phone. Sometimes we have so many apps on the phone. It's overwhelming. And sometimes if you don't even know a feature's out there, you don't even know a particular app exists unless you've heard of it, etc. So I think really with AI, you'll get more to a situation where you'll ask your platform to do something. It will either use a capability it already has, or it will go out to some kind of store maybe and get it for you, but you don't even need to see that. It just is able to do lots of different things, maybe in specialized ways, but generally just in a simple, elegant way that's easy to use.
I think what you're saying is actually a really smart paradigm that I don't hear too many people talk about, where the GPT store could turn into something that's more B2B, right? Hey, I want to build certain virtual assistants or certain specific assistants in a vertical that can have the following capabilities, where those capabilities are those individual GPTs. But then they turn around and have a single virtual assistant that learns about you, your preferences, your schedule, the types of things that you need to do every day. And then it leverages the GPTs and the other capabilities it needs to get those done in the background, whether it needs to download them on the fly because you have a new request, or because it knows everything about you to the point where it can guess which GPTs it should enable and need to service your request specifically. You're only ever interacting with one, but there are many sub-levels and GPTs running underneath it to get the task done for you. That's pretty clever.
Okay, and I've got to admit, I stole that idea. What's the name of that product? Screenless AI Pin. What's it called? By Humane is the name of the company.
The Humane AI Pin, yeah.
The Humane AI Pin. So there was an interview on CNBC where they had the two co-founders, who are husband and wife, talking about this invention. They each were wearing it. And one of the questions was around apps. And their view was very much a AI driven. You tell this device what it needs to do, it will go and figure it out. Another thing, when you were talking about doing stuff on the fly, right? I think that will be a software AI trend next year as well, which will be you can set AI a specific task, and there's tools out there where it will go and try and break that down, set it a goal, it will try and break that down into a few tasks, and that will try and run through those tasks. That starts to get to the world where you get an AI an objective, something that you want it to achieve, and it goes off and maybe builds things on the fly even, right? I want to connect to a particular system or send data to a particular area. It's build that workflow on automatically. And that's not that far away, because the prompt that it would need, you can imagine what they would look like, and you can imagine code being maybe generated back. So that comment of yours about building things on the fly, I think will happen more and more next year. Even if we just take advertising as an example, does generative AI unlock a level of personalization and real-time ads that we've never had before? Is it something where the ads can literally be built on the fly based on, and I think there are the mega caps are looking at building very personalized ads and trying to do this. So it will be interesting to see where that goes as well next year.
We saw that with Auto GPT earlier this year, even, where it was an agent that would take a high-level prompt and it would break it down into what it thought the steps were to complete that, then attack one step at a time. If it couldn't do the step, it would try to outsource the completion of that step, whether it meant hiring somebody off TaskRabbit to complete a CAPTCHA or just installing a different package to do math. So I'm curious to see what happens when you take that to the next level and give AIs the permission to enhance themselves to get things done. That seems like it should be the start of a very slippery slope, but I'm excited to see how that actually manifests in a way that's both safe and productive, right? What needs to happen for AI to actually become the next era of computing instead of just being a flash in the pan like the metaverse was from an investing point of view? At what point do we acknowledge that AI is not in that same kind of bucket, do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's established, it's embedded, it's bringing in revenues, and it's adopted widely already. In terms of comparing it to metaverse, I think it's a few levels up. But what I see as a massive risk is the area of ethics and transparency. I've been involved in a few forums talking about AI in different discussion groups, and it's like sometimes we spend so much time in this world that we don't take a step back and think about this. So I was in a conference where we were discussing around AI in healthcare. Right. So you're talking about predictions for whether someone's got a particular illness. You're looking at scans. Can you provide advice to junior doctors to help them understand things? One of the startups, really neat, all it did was it provided dialogue from a kind of virtual patient just to help train people up. So it was interactive. No patients were going to be harmed. It was a training tool, but it was a really good idea. But this technology, AI, it can make stuff up. Like we call them hallucinations, right? It can actually tell you things that are factually not correct, and it can do it in a sort of a very confident way. Now, if I was to tell you, like any other technology tool, I've built you this piece of software, every now and again, it's just going to tell you something completely made up. There's almost like no way we would accept that. We would say that's a bug, go fix it, etc. But in the AI world, I don't know, sleepwalked into this world where, okay, it's just one of the things we have to deal with. So I think the transparency side of AI, being able to explain what's going on, being able to cite sources is absolutely crucial. Not just throwing out an answer, but be able to say, I got to this using these steps. I think that it'll be crucial for us to trust AI, to put it really simply. And That trust is what's
Yeah.
needed for it to be adopted in enterprises at scale. There needs to be transparency and trust. Even Anthropic as an organization exists because it's trying to solve the area of a few things, but one of them is the ethics and the transparency. If we can, then it's even more exciting. It'll grow even faster. But I think that's something that needs to be tackled right away. It is already. There's an EU AI Act that just came out a few weeks ago. So at least one body of regulators has got together and published some guidelines and some guardrails around this. Some efforts have already started in the US. I expect other countries to do that and to put these guardrails out. And I think it'll be a really big topic. Maybe not the most exciting topic for everyone, but I think without this, we'll never get it to the stage we need it to be able to rely on it.
So it's clearly past the level of fad that the metaverse was when it first came out.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is there are other types of hurdles to get through before everyone is using it all the time. And it's not just for situations where you need to be extremely accurate, like in a hospital or with medical data, but also in the areas of attribution, right? So you can imagine what you were saying is, I want you to cite your sources so I can verify what you're saying is true. And what I'm talking about now is I want you to cite your sources so I know who to pay or attribute this content to, right?
True.
And advertising and content needs this attribution just as much as the hard sciences and medicine and areas where we need extreme accuracy. So I think you're raising a lot of good points across a wide variety of industries before they can fully adopt generative AI. So that's a great call out. What about the hardware side? No matter what we do, we're still using our smartphones, and we have been for about a decade. Do you think that there will be new kinds of devices? Do you think that devices will largely stay the same, but the experiences on those devices will change? How do you think about what all these software changes mean for the hardware that we use today?
I'm encouraged to see this AI pin by Humane, right? I know people either love it or hate it. Actually, I think a lot of people just don't like it. But I like the innovation. I like that someone is going, is there another way of doing this, right? At the moment, we're all tied to our screens. Everyone's on their smartphones. Is there a different paradigm? Is there a different way? I think we even talked about in our last podcast, like, why do we even have a phone? Even the shape of the phone is modeled around a traditional kind of handset that we speak into.
Yeah.
So a lot of our interaction these days is not that way. Is it worth us trying to revisit this? Is there a different way of interacting? So I'm glad to see that someone's at least tried to do that. I don't think they've really cracked it at Humane. Even when you see the demos, they've always got like loads of questions. How's it going to work when I'm in a meeting?
Yeah.
What if I'm just trying to check my emails? What if I'm in a noisy environment? I don't want to use voice, things like that. But I like the fact that someone's tried to disrupt that. I think where's a quick win is, and we've already seen the products, is taking something that is already wearable, like glasses, and enhancing those, right? So I think this augmented reality glasses that we're seeing from Meta are really interesting, actually. And I think even out of VR and AR, I think people are feeling that AR has got a more obvious practical use. One kind of AR app that I've used on my phone is like Google now will give you a street view where you can just point it at the street, click a button, and it will overlay the directions on what it sees in front of you, which doesn't sound like very useful. But when you come out of a station and your phone's not really sure where it is from a GPS point of view, it's so easy to go the wrong way down a street. And so just holding it up, it looks at your environment around you. As long as the lighting's decent, it will detect the scene and tell you where to go. That works really well. But I still feel a bit conscious holding up a phone like that, walking around as if people think I'm videoing or something when I'm just trying to work out where to go. If that was integrated into a pair of glasses, then that's a much better experience. And it opens up a whole suite of other use cases, right, in terms of augmented reality. So just trying to find out where to go. But if you're in a store, you're looking at different products, you can imagine all the different information that could be popped up. Another augmented reality app I've used in real life is when I was traveling in Romania, for example. If they didn't have a menu in English, you would literally be able to point your phone at the menu, and in real time, it would just translate it straight away directly.
Oh, that's cool.
Really useful to see that. Again, if that was just in a pair of glasses, it's even smoother. It's even better. So I think that is one area. Like, I know Meta have already got this partnership with Ray-Bans. They've already got some glasses out there. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with those going forward. What about Snap? They've also talked about having some like devices like this as well. Apple have had headsets for a while. There's always been rumors about our Apple going to do some kind of glasses as well. Let's see. I think that is, for me, in terms of virtuality, virtual worlds, the metaverse, that still feels a little bit far away in terms of just knowing what that killer app is. Is it work? Is it leisure? Is it gaming? But for AR, it feels like I can see a more real world application that's closer at hand. And so I think that's something that probably we will see more of next year.
I'm wondering if it's going to come from something like a wearable, whether that's AR glasses, VR headsets, or a screenless AI pin, or if it's going to be something like the Optimus Gen 2 bot or a self-driving car, where the use of generative AI isn't so much in our moment by moment interactions like we have with our cell phone, but more in specific verticals like autonomy to get from point A to point B, or to handle certain chores and tasks at home or at work that are manual and tedious, but doesn't necessarily need like specialized knowledge, cleaning, doing laundry, moving things from point A to point B in an office building.
There was an article we came across that was talking about Meta's employees being shown a roadmap right through to 2027 of AR and VR and what was planned, what was coming ahead. This was a rumor, so I will take it with a pinch of salt. But one of the things I really like the sound of, they were talking about sort of holographic type video calls. I'm a Star Wars fan like you, Alex. So I think it was almost Star Wars style. Someone can appear directly in front of you like a hologram during a regular kind of conversation because they're wearing the same glasses or the same headset as you. So the kind of like a video call where through a mix of AR and VR, if you like, the person would be in front of you. And that was being rumored to be something that was available in sort of 2024 or 2025. So I think at some point we will start getting into that world where video calling or that kind of interaction between people will have that realism. I know there's been a few things. There was the Lex Friedman podcast with Mark Zuckerberg, where they had really, really realistic avatars.
So
but I think they spent a lot of time building those. But I think the reality will be somewhere in the middle of that. It won't be as bad as the very original ones, and it probably won't be as slick as that really customized ones. But I think I'm hopeful in 2024, there'll be a new experience for how we do video calls and virtual presence of people when they can't physically be somewhere.
You're hitting exactly on the point of what I think needs to happen to move from the smartphone era of computing to a new type of form factor, whether that's going to be holographic devices, whether that's just going to be in-ear computers or screenless pins that are just pinned to your torso. I can't say, but I do think what you're describing would be a pretty compelling vision for switching away from a two-dimensional screen in my pocket to something that provides a more immersive 3D experience or an immersive hands-free experience. I do think that something big needs to change in the way we think about computing and the effort it takes to do computing for us to move away from such an elegant form factor, which is a screen that you can interact with a powerful computer and a chargeable battery behind it, an excellent camera, right? Like the smartphone actually packs a lot of unbelievable features. We need to see that in an even more compelling form factor before the mass market would move away from smartphones, in my opinion. Do you think it's more about replacing the entire general computing platform, or do you think we'll see more niche platforms, audio, visual only, AR only?
I think we've like that your little run through of all the things that are in a smartphone, I think we take for granted, and it's really important to remember that, right? If me and you went in a time machine 10 years ago, the phones would have been very basic, right? There would be no iPhone, no touch screens, things like that. So like you said, even the quality of the cameras in them are so high as well. You're downloading entire applications running directly on your phone, personalized for you. We probably take that for granted. I think there's a lot the smartphone does. Even when smart watches came out, you saw how much they were reliant on pairing with a phone anyway to try and get connectivity and things like that. So actually, it's a pretty tough form factor to break. It probably will be what you said. It probably will be other devices off to the side, the peripherals that will start to get smarter and will start to allow us to do more things. And I think we probably will be tied with the phone for a while still. But this AI pin makes me believe that there's at least some people out there trying to break the mold and trying to come up with something a little bit different.
I think both versions of the future are really cool, but I think the second version, where the phone stays in your pocket more and more as wearables get more capable, could be what we look forward to first. And then as computers get smaller and chips get smaller and smaller, more of the compute will be baked directly into the wearable and less reliant on the smartphone at all. So out of everything we've talked about, the software side where generative AI becomes more widely adopted, whether we realize it or not, or the hardware side where we see new wearables, new hardware experiences, even if they're still reliant on a smartphone in our pocket, is there one particular thing that you're more excited to research, more excited to cover in 2024?
For me personally, it's whether the AI software in 2024 is generative AI going to live up to the hype. And for me, that's really around the software game. And it's these companies that have popped up in the last few years, and also those that have been around for a while but have added AI, generative AI to their product. Will they be able to deliver on the promise? Will all of those people who are pointing at the moment going, this is just a bubble, this is a fad, we've been here before, we've seen this movie before, it turns out bad, will they be proven wrong in 2024, or will actually they be proven right that it was overhyped and we've been duped again by yet another cool new technology? And I think it's real, but I think 2024 is going to be that moment where we find out, and that's something I'm looking forward to strongly.
I think the big thing I'm excited to do is cover smaller, faster, more innovative companies. Go back to the sort of growth stocks that we covered a year ago and 2 years ago. Even though they're a little more risky, with interest rates lowering, it gives us the chance to talk about more innovation that doesn't just come from the safer mega cap companies. So I'm looking forward to combining our current direction with our roots and figuring out where the actual innovation is. And of course, all of the things that come along with that, like more podcast episodes, more deep dives, and more opportunities across every industry in the market that AI touches.
I'm excited about branching the podcast out a little bit. Maybe we can get some guests on there. We can speak to some people directly and get their input on what's going on in the market. And I'm also looking forward to not talking about inflation or interest rates too much as well. Hopefully that will go into the background and we can just focus on the actual fundamentals of these companies and the science behind the stock.
And no more market crash videos or things like that. The feedback for the podcast has been overwhelmingly positive. So we're going to keep on investing in that. We're going to bring on guests. We're going to have more deep dives into specific topics that may not make it into 15-minute videos. So I'm really looking forward to taking advantage of everything the podcast format has to offer. And with that, this is Ticker Symbol U. My name is Alex, and I'm joined by Arif, reminding you that the best investment you can make is in you.